Dad, he's a bad guy. Dad, he's a bad guy. Why is he there?
Yo, what it do? What it do? Hey, what's good, gang? I'm Royal Rawls, and we are here on a Saturday night for Royal Rawls Speaks. We're gonna react to a video called that's gonna help us understand, hopefully, why Hitler hated the Jewish people. Uh, there's a documentary that has been requested for me to react to by people in the community, so I'm going to go ahead and react to that video. I'm gonna give it a second, let a few people come in here. I know we had a few people in because I started the stream on accident earlier than I intended to, but that's besides the point. Nonetheless, we are here now. I meant to start it at 8. I was just trying to make the title for it, and instead of it scheduling it out, it started it on me instead. So it is what it is. That's all said and done with. I am hot like a tamale. Yeah, you get plenty of air. Alright, there we go. And we got the house hopefully getting a little more comfortable. And we will go ahead and get into this. Hopefully you guys enjoy this video. From what I've seen so far, most of it is black and white. It is an older film documentary on a time where not many colored cameras were around. There were some probably, but not many. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this. I'm gonna go ahead and switch the camera angle over. Get the display. Take the artwork away. Bye. Alright. Go ahead and try to sack. Make this a little smaller. Make me a little smaller. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Sorry. What it do, everybody? We got a documentary on why Hitler hated the Jews as a reactionary video that was requested by majority of people, primarily in the Discord. So we're gonna go ahead and get ready to get into that. I know I started the stream a little earlier than I intended, um, but that's all right. I meant to schedule the stream, and for some reason, it wanted to start the stream on me instead of just. Alright, there we go. I'm trying to get. There we go. I may have to make this smaller so that the majority of the imagery does get in here. But I don't want to make it too small, then you can't. Can't see what's going on. Alright, so I'll just do it like that. That'll be fine. Now you can hear me? Alright. So welcome in everybody. We're gonna go ahead and react to this video. Hopefully y'all enjoy. I myself have not seen this. What up Red Cherry? What up Topher if y'all are in here? I myself have not seen this video, but it was requested by people in the community, so therefore I will do them that favor and react to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. And if there's any concerns or anything you guys need to tell me, just make sure you guys let me know in the chat.
Built in his mind, he managed to convince the world. From Hitler's birth to his final days, he forged a deep hatred of the Jews, a hatred that kept growing stronger. With motives, accusations, and reasons built in his mind, he managed to convince the world that it was necessary to annihilate them all. But why did Hitler hate them so much? Let's begin. The child who dreamed of absolute power. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, in a small village.
Yeah, that's crazy. His birthday, obviously, way many years before mine, but his birthday isn't 4 days after my birthday, or 3 days after my birthday.
Village called Braunau am Inn.
This man was born on 420. He should have been happy his whole life.
Within the province of Upper Austria in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He was the fourth child of a middle-class family, made up of his father, Alois Hitler, a customs officer, and Clara Polzel, Alois's third wife. Adolf's parents were cousins, so in order to marry, they had no choice but to obtain a papal dispensation. At birth, young Hitler was baptized in St. Stephen's Church in the same village where he grew up. The chosen name was no coincidence. Adolf comes from Old High German, the earliest stage of the German language. Adel means nobility, and Wolf means wolf, so Adolf means noble wolf. Later, during his youth...
So his name means noble wolf. That is something I did not know, I guess. Hopefully we can learn some more things.
And adulthood, Hitler used this origin to create his own nickname, Wolf. In fact, during the Second World War, several of his headquarters adopted this term, such as the Wolfschanze in East Prussia and the Werwolf.
Does the video have an echo on it? Let me know if there is an echo on the video. That way I can make sure that there will be no echo on the video.
In Ukraine, among others. Adolf Hitler's childhood was hostile. He was brutally beaten, and to avoid suffering, he chose to stop crying so his father wouldn't see him as vulnerable. He performed well in primary school, but in his first year of secondary school, he was suspended and had no choice but to repeat the year. According to his teachers, Hitler showed no desire to study. However, there was one subject he followed closely and with deep interest: history, taught by Leopold Poetsch, a teacher whose ideological discourse directly influenced Hitler's beliefs. In Mein Kampf, his first book, Hitler revealed that his poor academic performance was directly tied to his troubled relationship with his father. Failing exams and ignoring teachers were his way of defying Alois. For years, father and son argued about the career path Adolf should
Thank you, Mom.
take. Alois wanted him to graduate as a customs officer and later to be a government official, just as he himself had been from a young age. But the future Führer had different plans. Since childhood, he dreamed of becoming a painter. He was obsessed with the arts and later even defined himself as a misunderstood artist. On January 3rd,
Hold on. You want to say hi to her? Yeah. Here, say it.
Hi.
Say hi, Grammy.
Hi, Granny.
Micah saying hi.
Hi, Granny. Hi, Granny.
See, now you see it in the camera? You gotta look right there. Say hi, Grammy.
Granny.
Alright.
1903, Adolf Hitler received news that would change his life forever. His father, Alois Hitler, had died. The event left a deep mark on him. His academic performance worsened dramatically, and he seemed to have no direction. At 16, he abandoned secondary school without a diploma. As time passed, certain traits of
Damn, he's a dropout too. Dropped out at 16.
his personality became
I did not know Hitler had dropped out at 16. Learn a couple things.
Clear. Hitler was developing into
Now, I will say that I never particularly looked into or tried to study anything about the man himself, Hitler, really, other than what was already known.
a pan-German nationalist. He despised the ethnic diversity of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and deeply loathed the Habsburg monarchy. Years earlier, during his school years, he had already taken note of a politician he quickly came to admire, Georg von Schönerer. Alongside Victor Adler, Robert Patai, Heinrich Friedjung, and Engelbert Pernersdorfer, Schönerer drafted the Linz Program of 1882, a political platform that demanded the complete Germanization of the Austrian state. This meant creating an Austria dominated by Germany. The manifesto proposed ceding the regions of Galicia, Bukovina, and Dalmatia to Hungary, and also suggested making German the official language of Austria. The Linz program had no success, as it was not supported by any influential political circles. Yet that was not the decisive factor. Schönerer's own allies abandoned him when he revealed his extreme anti-Semitism by adding a paragraph about the so-called Aryan race. There, he proposed excluding Jews, along with other minorities, from social dealings. This was not tolerated by Adler and Friedjung, who themselves belonged to the Jewish community. 2 years later, Schönerer publicly declared that anti-Semitism was the central pillar of the national idea. Vienna, the city that ignited the hatred 4 years after his father's death, after wandering with his mother through towns like Steyr and Linz, Hitler moved to Vienna for a 2-month stay with
Who is this man? Is this Hitler? This does not look like Hitler.
the financial help of his family. During his time there, he visited the Academy of Fine Arts, where he inquired about the admission requirements to pursue his dream of becoming a painter. A few weeks later, he returned to take the entrance exam, but lacking the necessary talent, he was rejected. After a disastrous second attempt, the Academy's rector suggested he consider the field of architecture. Yet Hitler had not completed secondary school, which made acceptance into such a university career nearly impossible. During this period, Hitler received heartbreaking news. At the end of 1907, his mother Clara died of breast cancer. The pain overwhelmed him. However, this event gave rise to a curious fact. The doctor who had overseen Clara's illness was Edward Bloch, a physician of Jewish origin. Bloch was married to Lily Kafka, with whom he had 2 daughters, Emily and Gertrude. Over time, he prospered as a private doctor. Yet he not only treated wealthy patients, he also cared for the poor, visiting them at home with his horse-drawn carriage and charging fees according to their means. This earned him the nickname the Doctor of the Poor. 3 years before Clara's death, Bloch had
The doctor of the poor. All right.
treated young Adolf for what was first suspected to be a lung disease, but turned out to be nothing more than a cold that developed into tonsillitis. From then on, whenever the Hitler family needed medical attention, they always turned to Bloch. When Clara showed weakness due to breast cancer, she was first operated on by another colleague who failed to solve the problem. Bloch was quickly called in. Without hesitation, he visited the family home and attempted to heal the wound with iodoform, an antiseptic that was one of the few treatments offering some hope at the time. The medication was extremely painful and had an unbearable smell. Ultimately, it was a poor decision, as it caused poisoning that soon became lethal. Bloch did everything he could to ease her suffering with morphine injections, but 9 months after the application of iodoform, Clara did not survive.
Damn. So the Dr. Blanc killed her. Man.
Adolf Hitler was deeply grateful. Bloch had often treated her for only a few coins, or even for free. Later, Hitler sent him various paintings and postcards he had drawn, remaining sincerely appreciative. When Hitler finally came to power, he made sure to protect Bloch and his wife from many of the regime's anti-Semitic
So Block can kill this man's wife, but he makes sure to keep him safe.
policies. He even remarked that if all Jews were like Bloch, there would be no Jewish question. This is a surprising fact, since by then Hitler was already preaching an anti-Semitic ideology. Historians have long wondered why he saved Bloch's life, despite the doctor's inability to cure his mother. That question remains unanswered.
My bad, his mother, not his wife. My bad.
Even with Hitler's support, Bloch could not continue practicing medicine because of the Nazi ban that forbade Jewish doctors from working. Eventually, he wrote to Hitler asking for help, and, curiously, Hitler responded with kindness. Thanks to the Führer's intervention, Bloch was able to sell his home at market value and emigrate to the United States. Returning to the timeline, at the start of 1908, after his mother's death, Hitler decided to move permanently to Vienna. Thanks to a generous inheritance from Clara, he was able to live comfortably for several months without having to work. Unlike
Damn, they had Jude written on the windows, or was that a sign in the window for this coffee shop?
Linz, the last city where he had lived, Vienna's population was predominantly German. Although Hitler felt comfortable in the Austrian capital, he disagreed with its multi-ethnic, multinational, and multi-religious culture. By late 1909, he ran out of money, was evicted from his apartment, and fell into the deepest poverty. He had no choice but to live temporarily in a homeless shelter. During that time, he relied on soup kitchens for meals. Later, he moved into a men's hostel. He earned a living through jobs such as shoveling snow, carrying luggage at the train station, and working as a construction laborer. In 1910, he began painting watercolor postcards of Vienna, which were sold by a business partner. In Hitler's first 2 years in the Austrian capital, the city's mayor was Karl Lueger, a politician whom Hitler watched with great attention and almost loyal fascination. Lueger was born in Vienna in 1844. He began his career on the left wing of the Progressive Party, and in 1875 he was elected as a candidate for mayor. In 1885, he cooperated with Georg von Schönerer in anti-Semitic campaigns linked to the Linz Program.
Damn, he really came from the bottom, worked his way up. Trying to see, I gotta keep clicking back and forth. Wish there was a way I could do it without that. I guess that kinda works. Yeah, I guess that kinda works. There we go. Alright, I'm gonna get back in the video.
And 2 years later he delivered a violently anti-Semitic speech supporting Schönerer's proposed law against Jewish immigration from Russia and Romania. Because of such actions, Lueger became extremely popular among the lower middle classes. This was largely due to his earthy and populist speeches, which included the economic and religious anti-Semitic prejudices common at the time. With political cunning, he managed to channel social discontent by portraying both capitalism and Marxism as products of the so-called Jewish mentality, reviving centuries-old hostility toward the Jews. In 1897, Emperor Franz Joseph I finally confirmed Lueger as mayor of Vienna after previously rejecting him several times. In that position, Lueger implemented discriminatory practices against Jews, such as refusing to hire them for municipal services and limiting their enrollment in both secondary schools and universities. He also supported politicians who actively spread the blood libel myth, that Jews ritually sacrificed Christian children during Passover to obtain blood for baking unleavened bread, a Jewish religious custom. This legend originated in the 6th century when anti-Semitism ran rampant through the streets of Europe. At that time, the killing of a young English boy, known as William of Norwich, was falsely attributed to local Jews. Nevertheless, Lueger could at times appear compassionate or even generous toward the Jewish community. Early in his career, he associated with Jewish members, one of them being Ignaz Mandl, a Jewish lawyer who remained his friend and political advisor even after Lueger expelled him from the Democratic Party in 1889. He also employed Vice Mayor Julius Pöhrer, who was of partial Jewish descent. Lueger even appeared in a synagogue wearing the mayor's chain of office and visited Jewish homes, boasting that it was up to him to decide who counted as a Jew. Without doubt, Lueger's influence was crucial in Hitler's political development. From Schönerer, Hitler had learned the idea that Jews could never be full German citizens. From Lueger, he realized that anti-Semitism, combined with social reforms, could be politically successful. In Mein Kampf, Hitler described him as the greatest German mayor of all time. He even declared that his political ideology was shaped in Vienna, crediting both Lueger and the city's anti-Semitic press. Still, when examining the evidence of Hitler's actual life in Vienna, certain doubts arise. Adolf Hitler had Jewish acquaintances and business partners. In fact, all indications suggest
Seems like Hitler surrounded himself by Jews, kept them safe, but then wanted every other Jew out of the way. It's crazy. Hypocrite.
that he did not fully embrace an anti-Semitic ideology until after he left Vienna and moved to Munich. In addition, August Kubizek, a conductor known for being Adolf Hitler's friend, mentioned that Hitler's deep anti-Semitism had already arrived with him from Linz. However, he also pointed out that Hitler's growing hatred toward all the forces that threatened the Germans was mainly directed at the Jews, who played a prominent role in Vienna. Some sources say that during his stay in Austria, Hitler called Vienna a pearl before my eyes. Yet some historians argue he never truly settled there, since he despised its people. Munich, the city that shaped the Führer. In May 1913, Hitler fled to Munich, a city of the German Empire, to avoid fulfilling his mandatory military service in Austria-Hungary. The idea of serving in an army alongside Jews and Slavs terrified him. At the same
Like, man, he picking and choosing, for real, for real. Serving alongside him disgusts him pretty much, but yeah, they could be his doctor, they could be everything else that's around him. It's crazy.
same time, he was always drawn to the culture, strength, and prosperity of Germany. Hitler's present situation was far from promising. He had to wait several months to collect his paternal inheritance, and he wished to enroll in Munich's Academy of Art, though he had little hope of being admitted. On January 18, 1914, Austrian authorities managed to locate him and delivered a court summons demanding his return. Hitler argued that he had left his homeland because the racial mixture in Vienna disgusted him. The Austrian police informed him that evading military service was punishable with a heavy fine, and leaving Austria amounted to desertion, an offense equivalent to prison time. With little choice, Hitler traveled to Salzburg, where he was examined and declared unfit for military service. The First World War awakens the leader of horror.
So this man was actually clarified as unfit. He was unfit to go to battle. Damn. And you wanted only the strong, man, oh man.
In 1914, the First World War began, a decisive milestone in Adolf Hitler's life. This historic conflict gave his existence a new purpose and even defined his vocation. Until then, his days had been marked by conflict and uncertainty, but the war changed everything. That same year, he volunteered for the Bavarian Army, which together with the German Army and the Austro-Hungarian Empire fought against France, Britain, and Russia. Despite being a foreign citizen, the authorities accepted him. On August 2nd, a 25-year-old Hitler attended a patriotic rally in Munich's central square, the Odeonsplatz. Years later, the event was captured by Heinrich Hoffmann, Hitler's official photographer as Chancellor, and turned into a propaganda image of Nazi Germany.
It's crazy that you do get, like, to actually see some color in some of these cameras back then.
Soon after, Hitler joined the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment. He received training that was both limited and rushed, and his unit was quickly sent to Belgium. They fought in the First Battle of Ypres, waged in October and November of 1914. This was Hitler's only experience in the front line of combat. Later, he was promoted to Gefreiter, the second rank above private. Roughly speaking, this position was equivalent to private first class in the United States Army, though it is often mistranslated as corporal. That was the only promotion Hitler ever received throughout the war, and he retained that rank until the end of his service. Even so, he was awarded several medals, the Iron Cross Second Class in December 1914 and the Iron Cross First Class in August 1918. In 1914, Hitler was assigned as a messenger, tasked with carrying communications to and from regimental headquarters. For the next 4 years, his regiment fought in various battles in Belgium and France along the Western Front. During these engagements, Hitler
So he was really like a grunt coming up. Definitely had to fight and earn his way. Got rejected by one army, went and fought for another, gained a rank, a bunch of medals. Only gained one rank though. Definitely worked his way up, that's for sure.
was often stationed several kilometers behind the front line. However, during the Battle of the Somme, he was wounded by a shell fragment in the upper thigh. He served actively with his unit for most of the conflict, although he also spent time on the home front. After his wound at the Somme, he spent 2 months recovering in a military hospital near Berlin. There he witnessed the widespread famine among German civilians during the winter of 1916, which continued into 1917. In September 1918, while on leave, Hitler saw the moral collapse of the German home front. These images never left his mind and later shaped his decisions on food supplies during the Second World War. A month later, he was
Facts, Topher, facts. He said, I'm going to serve one way or another. If this army rejects me, I'll go serve for this one. He got a lot of medals as for only getting one rank, though. But learning a lot of little things that I didn't really know about him. Never really asked about him, but never really knew about him.
injured in a mustard gas attack in Belgium and sent to the military hospital in Pacewalk. While recovering, he learned of the armistice of November 11th, the abdication of Kaiser Wilhelm II, and the outbreak of the German Revolution. These news were devastating for Hitler. Once again, everything grew dark before my eyes, he wrote. Yet he also expressed pride. I am not ashamed to say that, carried away by my enthusiasm, I fell to my knees and thanked heaven from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to live at that time. After the defeat, the so-called stab-in-the-back legend spread, a theory that became highly persuasive to Hitler. In 1919, a parliamentary commission questioned General Paul von Hindenburg, the supreme commander of the German army,
That's a shit ton of medals. I don't know if those are all his medals or not, but that's a shit ton of medals.
about the causes of Germany's defeat in the First World War. During the discussion, he claimed that Germany had been betrayed by its own government, which, in the most critical moment of the war, did not hesitate to begin peace talks. He also stated that the German army had been weakened by the revolutionary atmosphere within its ranks and throughout the country. In that context, he cited a British general who had said, "The German army was stabbed in the back." Thus was born the stab-in-the-back myth. Some argue that the phrase came from Wagner's opera Gotterdammerung, Twilight of the Gods, first performed in 1876, where Hagen kills his enemy Siegfried with a blow from behind. This conspiracy theory claimed that the German army was not defeated on the battle.
I don't know when this documentary was made, but it looks like, at least when the video was made, whatever this building is that they're showing, it was still standing. Looks like it's definitely been abandoned for a while in this.
battlefield, but rather betrayed by social democratic politicians who signed the ceasefire in order to gain power. Although the German High Command made serious strategic mistakes that prevented continued fighting, Hindenburg, together with General Erich Ludendorff, promoted this conspiratorial story to avoid taking responsibility for the defeat. At the same time, various far-right, nationalist and anti-Semitic groups adopted the myth as part of their narrative, claiming that the stab in the back was the result of a global Jewish conspiracy. In fact, even during the war, false rumors were already circulating that questioned the patriotism of German Jews in battle. For this reason, in 1916, the German government conducted a census of Jews serving in the army. The results showed that Jews and non-Jews served at similar rates on the front lines. However, these findings were never published.
Some uncanny-ass pictures of Hitler when he was younger throughout this.
Today, both German and international historians unanimously reject the stab-in-the-back myth. They point out that the German army had run out of reserves and was completely overwhelmed after the United
Watch history repeat itself here in America with the same people. We'll just let the video play.
United States entered the war. In 1933, when Hitler and the Nazi Party came to power, they turned this legend into a central element of their official account of the 1920s. They portrayed the Weimar Republic as the work of the so-called November criminals, who, according to them, had stabbed the nation in the back in order to seize power. Nazi propaganda used this theory to describe that period as a swamp of corruption, degeneration, national humiliation, and ruthless persecution of the honest national opposition. They spoke of 14 years of rule by Jewish Marxists and cultural Bolsheviks, finally swept away by the National Socialist movement under Hitler and the victory of the National Revolution of 1933. The Protocols of Zion spread the poison of anti-Semitism in the years following the First World War. At that time, Hitler was walking the streets of Munich and sensed an atmosphere favorable to anti-Semitism. The German city had become a hotbed of anti-Jewish sentiment. Jews were blamed for the actions of the short-lived Bavarian Soviet Republic, a communist state. It was in this context that a publication appeared in German titled The Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Yo, Topher, I can't get you it on a projector, but the link for it is in the description of the video. So if you want to watch it on the page, because obviously this content's not owned by me, the name of the, I don't know it off the top of my head. I can pull it up real quick. The name of the page is Military Archive in English. Why did Hitler persecute the Jewish people is the name of the film. But the link should be in the description for this. Shoutouts to the original people who made this video. Again, like I said, I don't own the rights to it. Just reacting to it. But yeah, I can't get it on a projector for you, but you can at least watch it. I'm trying to keep as much of it in here as I can. It's not cut. It's actually only a 50-minute video, so but I'm gonna go ahead and get back into playing it.
Originally written in 1903, the text propagated anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. It claimed the existence of a secret group of Jews, the so-called Elders of Zion, who controlled the world. The protocols were first published in the early 20th century in the Russian Empire, in the newspaper Znamya, meaning the banner, edited in St. Petersburg by the prominent anti-Semitic writer Pavel Krushevan. Several scholars argue that Krushevan himself authored the protocols. When publishing them in his newspaper, he wrote both a preface and an epilogue, claiming he had discovered an authentic document that revealed a worldwide Jewish conspiracy. According to him, it was the minutes of a meeting of the World Union of Freemasons and the Elders of Zion. The early versions contained 24 chapters and alleged that these elders planned to control global politics, the economy, financial markets, the press, and education. They also claimed that Jews sought to destroy Christianity and all other religions. The text said they would profit by keeping the world in a constant state of war. As supposed evidence, Khrushchev pointed to the emerging Zionist movement, which promoted the creation of a Jewish state in the ancient homeland of Israel. Some even falsely claimed that the protocols were the minutes of the First Zionist Congress, held in Basel, Switzerland in 1897, but this was soon proven entirely false. In 1905, the protocols were published as an appendix to a book about the coming of the Antichrist. The author, Sergei Nilus, was a Russian mystic and a staunch anti-Semite who claimed that Jews were agents of satanic forces determined to destroy the world. Meanwhile, Hitler rejoiced as his wish came true, that both Germany and the rest of the world began to see Jews the way he did. After the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, the protocols of the Elders of Zion began circulating more widely. That same year, Tsar Nicholas II abdicated the throne amid a popular uprising driven by poverty and food shortages. Months later, the Bolshevik Party, which would later become the Communist Party, staged a coup. The widespread fear that communist revolutions would spread across Europe reinforced one of the main conspiracies contained in the protocols, that Jews were behind communism and responsible for revolution. This completely false accusation became known as Judeo-Bolshevism. In 1919, the protocols were translated into German. During the 1920s, various editions appeared in the United States, especially in cities like New York and Boston. At the same time, copies were sent to London and Japan, translated into their respective languages. In 1921, the protocols of the Elders of Zion were translated into Italian, Swedish, and Norwegian, and 2 years later into Polish. By 1925, they were already available in Arabic in Syria. With the spread of the protocols came new books promoting anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Among the most notorious was The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem, written by Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company. This book was translated into 16 languages, including German. Over time, the details of the text were modified to fit the political climate of each country. Although newspapers such as the New York Times, journalist Herman Bernstein of the New York Herald, and British diplomatic correspondent Lucian Wolff published articles debunking the protocols and proving they were false, the damage had already been done. A large part of European and American society accepted many of the text's claims as true. During the 1920s, Adolf Hitler read the protocols thanks to Alfred Rosenberg, a prominent Nazi Party ideologue and author of The Myth of the 20th Century, a book that developed various Nazi racial theories. These ideas
Sorry, just give me a second, guys. I'm having get my kid's pizza out the oven and give it to him real quick. Give me just 1 second.
helped Hitler reinforce his convictions, making him realize that even if he had not written those texts, his beliefs were reaching the minds and hearts of many people. In Mein Kampf, Hitler claimed that the protocols revealed the true nature and activity of the Jewish people and exposed their ultimate goals. Although once in power in 1933, Hitler did not directly mention the protocols in his public speeches, he frequently repeated many of the falsehoods they contained, including the claim associated with Judeo-Bolshevism. On the eve of the Second World War, and throughout it, Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda of the Third Reich, understood that he could exploit the protocols
I'm back. Oh, what up, Trent? What it do?
of Zion to further demonize the Jews. Yet years earlier he had written in his personal diary, "I think the protocols of the Elders of Zion are a forgery. I believe in their intrinsic truth, but not in their factual authenticity." In other words, Goebbels considered that even if the document was false, it was useful to advance the Nazi regime's anti-Semitic agenda. As a result, Julius Streicher, editor of the anti-Semitic newspaper Der Stürmer, published numerous articles during the 1930s based on the ideas contained in the protocols. The Nazi Party's central publishing house issued 22 editions of the protocols between 1919 and 1938. During the Second World War, the Nazis circulated countless editions of the text in every country they occupied. Even in 1943, after millions of Jews had already been murdered as part of the final solution, German authorities were still publishing editions of the protocols in Russian, Ukrainian, and Belarusian. They did the same in France, Belgium, and Poland. The Silent Rise.
Man, they were really covering some ground with this. All over the place. See all the countries that they had just mentioned? Crazy.
No one wanted to see. In the summer of 1919, Adolf Hitler joined the information office of the Bavarian military administration. Its purpose was to gather intelligence on political parties in Munich and provide anti-communist political training to the troops. At the same time, Hitler attended an anti-communist propaganda course, spending long hours listening to lectures on history and politics that deeply influenced his thinking. In August of that same year, Hitler delivered his first anti-Semitic political speeches to soldiers and quickly discovered his talent as a speaker. He began to refine his style. His supervisor was impressed by his communication skills and asked him to write a response to a student's question on the Jewish question as a racial problem. Hitler valued the trust placed in him and worked hard to draft a perfect text. In it, he repeated lies about Jews rooted in economic nationalist and racial anti-Semitism.
To get his point across, essentially, boycott the Jews, as you see the posters say. Communist is Jewish. He would spread lies about him. It worked. Those lies are probably the truths of today, though.
He also emphasized the urgent need for a nationalist government that would completely expel the Jewish people from Germany. In September 1919, Hitler attended a meeting of the German Workers' Party, or DAP, where he delivered an improvised speech that made a strong impression on party leaders who invited him to join their ranks. Hitler accepted, and on October 16, 1919, he gave his first official speech in a beer hall. His oratory skills allowed him to rise quickly within the party, working closely with its leaders on drafting the political program, which he personally announced at a mass rally held on February 24, 1920, in Munich's Hofbrauhaus Beer Hall. Shortly afterward, the DAP was transformed into the NSDAP, the National Social.
Is he on top of a roof here? What is it, Stars? Not shit, Trent. How's it going, brother? My bad. What's good, Trent? What's good? And what's up, Stars? What you got to say?
Sozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. In English, it became known as the Nazi Party. At the end of 1920, Hitler left the Bavarian army and moved into a small rented room in the city centre. From that moment on, he devoted himself entirely to politics. He began to receive increasing financial support, either from internal party funds or from the income generated by his political speeches. By mid-1921, Hitler had consolidated himself as the leader of the Nazi Party.
No, I did not. I think I timed you out for 24 hours. I never banned you on there. Someone else may have banned you. I'll have to look through the list.
The Gemlich Letter, the beginning of a deadly ideology. In 1919, barely 10 months after
Did you hear me? I'm sorry, I didn't hear my mic was down. I did not ban you, no. I timed you out for 24 hours. Yeah, I didn't mean to have my mic down all the way. Sometimes when I go to click the mic off, because I gotta mute that mic to play the video or there's an echo. So sometimes I forget to unmute it, and then sometimes when I go to unmute it, I hit unban you.
After the end of the First World War, Adolf Hitler drafted a manuscript in response to a conversation with Adolf Gemlich, a colleague in the Munich Military Intelligence Office. One of Gemlich's tasks was to create propaganda for the German army, which is why the document became known as the Gemlich Letter.
I guess they don't like you, honestly. I don't know. I don't really have any other answer. I guess they just don't like you. I don't know.
Before writing the text,
I don't necessarily have a problem with you not being in the sports channel. Over here, I get that some of the content is really for older, mature audience. But over in the sports channel, we watch football, watching wrestling. There's a lot of young fans of both of those sports, so I expect young fans are probably going to come in. But yeah, no. I'll look through the list and I'll unban it.
Hitler had spoken with Captain Ulrich Mayer, who suggested he meet with Gemlich to help spread the idea that Jews were responsible for Germany's defeat in the Great War. According to Marvin Heer, dean of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, this is the first political document in which Hitler openly outlines his plans regarding the Jews. He considers it hard to imagine a more important text for understanding the ideological roots of the Second World War. It reveals the reasons to wage that war in the mind of the man who would lead it, Adolf Hitler. In the letter, Hitler argued that anti-Semitism was often dismissed as an emotional phenomenon, but that this was a mistake. He insisted that anti-Semitism as a political movement should not be defined by emotion, but by the recognition of facts. Throughout
They all showing that Bellamy salute. That right there, that's the Bellamy salute. American kids used to do that to pledge allegiance. It's crazy. My other football channel, my mods be messing with me because I showed the Bellamy salute. And they're like, oh, you're Nazi. But no, that's like, yeah, the Nazis claimed it. They claimed it. But that's not where it started.
the text, Hitler claimed that Judaism was not a religion but a race, accusing Jews of being
I'm not saying you don't, Stars. I'm not saying you don't. And I mean, it's not that the channel's not just politics. So I mean, some of it is okay, but a lot of it's for just more of a mature audience. I'm not saying you're not particularly immature, but
being hoarders of wealth, whose true aim was to conquer the world through money. He declared that the danger of Judaism was reflected in what he described as the natural aversion many Germans felt toward Jews, supposedly based on personal.
Can you hear me better now? Y'all hear me better now? I keep it down a little lower because I'm trying to not pick up the kids in the background. And then I gotta mute it every time I play the video because I'm pretty sure there's an echo.
Contact that almost always left a negative impression.
Y'all getting
With
an echo
explicit
right now?
hatred, he added, "Every man pursues."
Like, I'm sure you were getting an echo just then with me on there. So, but yeah, I mean, I just had the volume down lower, so I was trying to keep some of the background noise out.
A higher goal: religion, socialism, democracy. For the Jews,
and then sometimes when I go to unmute the mic to talk, instead of clicking the unmute button, I accidentally hit right beside it at 0 volume. So then I'm talking still thinking it's on. But yeah, if y'all can't hear me or something, just make sure y'all let me know.
these ideals are nothing but a means to an end, satisfying their craving for gold and domination. Hitler distinguished between two forms of anti-Semitism: the emotional type, expressed in pogroms and spontaneous attacks, and the rational type, which he said must be translated into systematic action to suspend Jewish rights. Yet his ultimate goal was even more extreme: the uncompromising elimination of Jews as a people. He concluded that if a strong government were to lead the German Empire, it could effectively confront the so-called Jewish threat by denying their rights. but he insisted that the final
And look at that coat. That coat looks like a nice, comfy ass coat.
objective had to be the unwavering removal of all Jews. Even without political power,
Back in the day, that looked like style back then. He had swagger with that coat. Hold on 1 second. 1 second, Chad. Throw my hoodie on. Throw my hoodie on. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Step into just a t-shirt hoodie. He wasn't though. He wasn't though for real, stars. He actually he kind of built himself up. I mean, he did grunt work throughout the years. Low level army. I mean, he only got one rank in the army, and then later in his years, he found his way into politics. And then that's when he probably started acquiring most of his money. But yeah, he definitely got a lot of it from the dirt. What it seems like.
Hitler made his ambitions and convictions clear. According to Marvin Heer, in this letter, Hitler sketched out a vision that demanded a ruthless government with the courage to eliminate them completely. Already as a young, unknown figure in German politics, Hitler understood that this struggle could not be carried out by gangs or sporadic violence, but only through a state organization. Without a doubt, regardless of the particular positions of other leaders of the Third Reich, this letter shows that the seed of genocidal antisemitism
And they just said, "Yeah, we can't allow the gangs to take out the Jews. We can't allow the riot. We need it to be a reform thing. The government needs to do it." Shit, crazy. Shovel the snow, supposedly. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
in the Second World War originated in Hitler's own mind. Still, experts clarify that despite the letter's revealing nature, it does not indicate the exact strategy that would later be applied to eradicate the Jews. They also point out that the German word Hitler used for this elimination was Entfernung, a term which in the post-war context could mean expulsion, removal or distancing, and not necessarily systematic mass murder, as would later occur during the Holocaust. Two signatures that changed the fate of the world, Versailles and Weimar. At the end of the First World War, 50 countries signed the Treaty of Versailles, an agreement concluded in 1919 between the victorious powers and Germany. The treaty declared Germany as the main culprit of the war, and for that reason it was forced to accept harsh conditions, the compulsory disarmament of its army, heavy financial reparations to the victorious nations, and the loss of large territories. The German population received the treaty with deep resentment. They saw its conditions as both humiliating and impossible to pay. In contrast, the United States refused to sign it, convinced that such harsh measures would only lead to greater disasters in the future. In a speech delivered in Munich on April 13, 1923, Adolf Hitler said the following about the Treaty of Versailles. This treaty was created to bring death to 20 million Germans and to completely ruin the German nation. In that same speech, he also stated that the expulsion of Jews from German blood would inevitably lead to atrocities against the Jewish people. One related issue in this context is the Balfour Declaration, which some experts argue was indirectly linked to the Treaty of Versailles. It was a letter sent by the British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Baron Lionel Walter Rothschild, leader of the British Jewish community. In 1922, the League of Nations incorporated the declaration into the British Mandate over Palestine, officially granting the United Kingdom responsibility for administering the territory. The letter read as follows: Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you on behalf of His Majesty's government the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
And we know that later on, the Jews end up influencing and blackmailing the Rothschilds, which is part of how our children and us were indoctrinated with false truths that were spread as mostly propaganda.
His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national
What
home
up,
for the Jewish
Avery?
people,
What it do?
and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. During the first years, nearly 100,000 Jewish immigrants settled in Palestine. This raises a question. Knowing the Balfour Declaration, why did Hitler not send Europe's Jews there? The truth is that the idea was initially discussed in some Nazi circles as a possible solution to the Jewish question, but it was soon abandoned for both ideological and geopolitical reasons. First of all, Hitler never considered relocation a true option. In his worldview, Jews were not merely Germany's problem, but the root of Europe's ills, and his objective was their elimination, not their resettlement. Moreover, Arab resistance was strong. Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of
No, Avery. College football is on, probably. Yes. I don't stream college football until we get to the bowl games. Was the leader of Spain? I hear. Yeah, there were a few countries that were working with him. A few of them.
Jerusalem firmly opposed Jewish immigration, fearing it would lead to the creation of a Jewish state. In fact, he held meetings with Nazi officials to block such migration and shared Hitler's hostile vision toward Judaism. For these reasons, Hitler never seriously considered using Palestine as an alternative. Instead, he chose to win the Mufti's support by pursuing the elimination of the Jewish people, the failed coup that gave birth to Mein Kampf. The first 4 years of the Weimar Republic, the nation that replaced the German Empire, were marked by deep economic crisis. The First World War had left the country devastated and starving. By 1923, the Nazi Party already had more than 50,000 members, eager for action against the democratic government. On the night of November 8th, Hitler launched an attempted coup d'etat, later known.
Maybe there's not a whole lot. I mean, you actually have to go look up and look for. He's not someone that was really taught much about for an extended period of time or anything like Hitler was. Like, we did projects in school over here in the U.S. on Hitler. Like, a whole week was dedicated to it, where we were technically a number and of a victim in the Holocaust, and we had to wear, like, it was called Holocaust Week, and we had to, each student had like a number that they were given that was acquired to a name of a victim that was a victim of the Holocaust, and we had to kind of live out their story. And it was a project that people either made it towards the end or they died off throughout that project, and then your part of the story was over. It's kind of crazy, but we did that in, like, I think it was middle school. I think it was something like seventh grade or something like that. We did that, and that's what they taught us. But that was teaching us about the Jews and how bad Hitler was. That's what it was all about. It, which was a doctrination to us, because they didn't teach us the whole truth. They didn't teach us the whole truth. They only taught us one side of it. But we had a literally, it was like a week long, and where they taught us about the Holocaust and all that shit. That I remember that shit. Like, I'm pretty sure it was seventh grade. It might have been eighth grade, but it was right there in middle school. What up,
Known as the
Nemo?
Beer Hall Putsch. The event took place in the Bürgerbraukeller Beer Hall in Munich, where Gustav Ritter von Kahr, the Bavarian prime.
You didn't have to do any of that in school, Topher? Topher, how old are you? Because I think they stopped doing that in schools shortly after, like, my years. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Stars. But they don't have like a thing that they teach you about the Holocaust no more in schools, and like actually have you play it out in any type of way. 'Cause that's definitely what my school did.
Minister was addressing a rally. Hitler, who had not been invited, felt deeply insulted. Waiting outside were stormtroopers loyal to the National Socialist movement. When his personal bodyguard unit, the Stoßtrupp Adolf Hitler, entered the hall, Hitler fired his pistol into the ceiling, interrupting the meeting and declaring that the national revolution had begun. He quickly forced Kahr, along with two other Bavarian leaders, von Lossow and von Zeisser, into a side room, where he threatened them at gunpoint. Under pressure, they returned to the main hall and announced before the crowd the supposed formation of a new government. But Kahr soon took advantage.
I hear you, Stars. What about you, Topher? How old are you? Are you learning about it? Or have you already learned about it?
Of Hitler's disorganized planning, denounced the coup and ordered the army and police to crush the uprising. Hitler was arrested, tried for high treason, and sentenced to 5 years in Landsberg prison, a minimum security facility. Yet despite the failure, he skillfully exploited the scandal to spread his propaganda. Until then, he had little popularity, but suddenly the national and international press turned him into a well-known figure. In the end, he served only 8 months of his sentence, time he used to write his first book, Mein Kampf. With this work, he sought not only to earn money, but also to build an ideological platform to spread his views and attack those whom he claimed had betrayed Germany. The original title he considered was 4.5 Years of Struggle Against Lies, Stupidity and Cowardice. But he shortened it simply.
Damn, really? Well, you guys are in school right now, so I'm talking back 2003, 2004. I think they probably would think it's unacceptable to do in school nowadays. With the way cancel culture is, any type of anything like that, they probably would see it as some type of problem. Where either some teacher or some parent that gets offended by it because they don't want to learn the full details of their history want it canceled. But that takes away from freedom of speech. Like, getting offended by something doesn't mean we should take it away. If we take away everything that everybody is offended by, we would have nothing left we could say anymore. So, I don't know. Shit's crazy. You graduated 05. Damn, so you're about my age, Topher. I think we figured that out already. That you're 38 too? Because that was my graduation year. But yeah, I went to high school in Maine, Greater Gloucester High School, and middle school, and that's where they had us do it, and I graduated same year.
To Mein Kampf, My Struggle. The first volume was published in 1925, followed by the second in 1926. The publisher himself was dissatisfied with the book, but Hitler cared little. He knew it was written for those already convinced of his ideology. From the beginning, it became a commercial success, though few people ever managed to read it entirely, not only because of its 800-page length, but also due to its complex language.
Damn. See, history and science were always like things that I was interested in. Math I was decent at, but English, man, I'm illiterate as a motherfucker.
In 1934, with Hitler's rise to power, there was a true explosion in book sales, 1 million copies in a single year, priced between 7 and 12 marks, depending on the edition. This was a considerable expense given the salaries of the time. Over time, copies were even given as gifts to war veterans with disabilities, university graduates, and newlyweds on their wedding.
Trying to be an animal biologist? Man, I hear you. Well, good luck. Hopefully you get what you were looking for.
Day. The book began with the following sentence. In compliance with the sentence issued by the People's Court of Munich on April 1st, 1924, I began my imprisonment at Landsberg prison. Hitler then
April
explained the book's
Fool!
purpose. The progress of great movements in the world has generally depended on great speakers. However, he considered it essential that the doctrine be laid out in writing. In this way, Hitler promoted one of his greatest skills. Throughout its extensive pages, he denigrates and demonizes Jews, constructing an extreme conspiracy about the meaning of Judaism as an institution. Some of his statements reveal his most abominable hatred toward anyone who identifies as Jewish. The Jewish doctrine of Marxism rejects the aristocratic principle.
He hates on anybody that's Jewish except for the Jewish doctor that he let kill his mom and then kept around.
Of nature and replaces the eternal privilege of power and strength with the mass and its dead weight. In doing so, it denies the value of the human personality, questions the importance of nationality and race, and removes from humanity the premise of its existence.
What up, Noah? Damn, you show up to that fucking 10 minutes left in the video.
And culture as a foundation
Y'all recommend a video for me to do, and y'all don't even show up for the video. God damn.
of the universe, this doctrine would bring an end to any intellectually conceivable order for man. And just as in the largest recognizable organisms, the result of applying such a law could only be chaos. On Earth, it would mean destruction for its inhabitants. If, with the help of its Marxist creed, the Jew triumphs over the peoples of the world, his crown will be humanity's funeral crown. And this planet, as it has for thousands of years, will drift through the ether bereft of mankind. That is why today I
Yeah, you and everyone else. Shroom picked the damn video and he ain't even here.
believe I act
I ain't seen Nemo, I think, popped in maybe once. Maybe not. No, I don't see Nemo either, I don't think. No, yeah, Nemo did pop in once. Nemo popped in once with like a red waving hand. You're popping in now, 10 minutes left in the damn video that I'm reacting to. On a 50-minute video. Ali.
according to the will of the Almighty Creator. In defending myself from the Jew, I fight for the work of the Lord. To what extent is the existence of this people based on a continuous lie? It is incomparably demonstrated by the protocols of the elders of Zion, so hated.
Is that all money right there? Euro or money, whatever. I think it's euro. 'Cause that's what Shroom donates when he donates. That a bunch of euro right there? Or are those flyers? They might be flyers.
By the Jews. They are based on a forgery, laments and shouts the Frankfurter Zeitung weekly, the best proof of their authenticity.
The Bellamy salute. There's a star camera for you. I showed it earlier too. Is our Bellamy salute though? Nazis used it, but it wasn't only theirs.
Because once this book becomes common property of a people, the Jewish threat can be considered destroyed. Since the Jew is not the attacked but the attacker, not only does he make his
She's staying on topic for the most part, and better than having nobody in here.
opponent his enemy, but also anyone who resists him. Yet the means he uses to break upright souls is not open warfare but lies and slander. He stops at
I said, because she's staying on topic for most part, and it's better than no one else being in here. If coming in here and she's talking about the video, I'm going to respond to it. I don't see nothing wrong with that.
nothing, and in his vileness reaches such heights that no one should be surprised if among our people the personification of evil takes on the living form of the Jew. The ignorance of the masses about the true nature of the Jew, the lack of instinct, and the short-sightedness of our upper classes make the people easy prey for the Jewish campaign of lies. While the elites, out of innate cowardice, reject a man attacked by Jews, the masses, out of stupidity or naivety, believe everything. State authorities remain silent or, as often happens, persecute the unjustly slandered, which, in the eyes of these officials, maintains state authority and safeguards public order. Jewish domination in the state seems so firm that now one can not only proudly call oneself Jewish.
Sounds like the USA, where the Jewish state is so dominant and prevalent in everywhere you go. That's how it was in Germany. That's how it is now in the U.S. You got Jew sponsorship or Israeli sponsorship everywhere. Everywhere you look. Every major event they're somehow involved in. And then they call us anti-Semitic for asking questions. But yet they're the ones that are involved in every major U.S. event and are a part of every war the U.S. has ever been in since at least the 60s. So, to be able to ask questions, you shouldn't be called anti-Semitic. Like, we want to know answers. What the fuck going on?
But also openly admit one's national and political intentions. The end
Just Spanish Civil War just ended. I hear you.
will not only be
Trent!
the loss of freedom for the peoples oppressed by the Jew, but also the end of this parasite. After the death of its victim, the vampire inevitably dies as well. Despite its commercial success, the book faced sharp criticism from various newspapers, which accused it of being full of empty formulas, pathetic phrases, and meaningless trivialities. Journalist Stefan Grossman even expressed doubts about the author's mental health in an interview. Sven Felix Kellerhoff, author of Mein Kampf, the story of the book that shaped the 20th century, described it as a chaotic and repetitive book. The enormous number of digressions weakens its structure. In general, only two aspects are clear: Hitler's radical anti-Semitism with fantasies of extermination, and his belief that he was destined to secure the future of the German people by conquering living space in the East, a goal he hoped to achieve through an unrealistic agreement with Great Britain. Many historians agree that Hitler drew on numerous sources and that his ideas were not original, except for the way he combined everything he had read, particularly the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and the International Jew.
What do you mean, Trent? What do you mean what happened on Discord? Yes. I hear you. I hear you. Getting your history out there. Noah lost his mod. Oh, in the Discord, he'll get it back. But I just haven't given it back to him yet. I haven't really been in the Discord much. We were messing around.
Also accuse him of making demonstrable errors in parts of his supposed autobiography, as he embellished fragments of his story to provoke certain effects on his audience. The hidden story of Hitler's Jewish friend. Despite his hatred for Jews, Hitler managed to form a friendship with a young girl of Hebrew origin.
Oh, no. Hitler. No. You can't be going and dating no Jew and you wanting to kill them all. How's that work? How the fuck's that work? You gotta hide the fact that she's Jewish from everybody else?
She even came to be nicknamed the Führer's daughter. Her name was Brynjadin Nienau, better known as Bernila Nienau. She was born on April 20th, 1926 in
She had the same birthday as Hitler. Just a few years difference.
Dortmund, Germany. Her father was Dr. Bernhard Nienau, who died shortly before her birth. and her mother was Caroline Morgenstern, a nurse. The Nuremberg laws, which determined people's racial origins, classified Bernila as one-quarter Jewish. In 1928, they moved to Munich, and although she experienced some discrimination, she was able to maintain her citizenship in the Reich. In the spring of 1933, while Hitler and his followers were building concentration camps to imprison and exterminate Jews, 6-year-old Bernile and her mother positioned themselves among visitors to Obersalzberg, where Hitler resided. Hitler was captivated by her bright blue eyes and blonde hair.
What's up, Walt?
Believing her to have an Aryan appearance, he invited her for a closer visit. Curiously, by that time Hitler already knew that Bernile's mother and grandmother were Jewish. Despite this, their friendship lasted about 6 years. Bernile often called him Uncle Adolf, while he referred to her with a pet name.
Uncle Adolf. That's his new name, gang. Uncle Adolf.
They shared the same birthday, April 20th, and often celebrated together. Among the 17 letters preserved after the war is one Bernile wrote to Adolf Hitler and his chief advisor, Wilhelm Bruckner, dated September 27, 1936, in Munich. Dear Uncle Bruckner, I have a lot to tell you today. During the holidays we were at Obersalzberg, and I was able to see my dear Uncle Hitler twice. Unfortunately, he has never come up. I'm already working on Christmas gifts. I'm knitting socks for Uncle Hitler again because I asked if the ones from last year still fit, and he said yes. This year I can use finer yarn. Mother only helps me with the heel. They will be very warm, and since he travels so much, it is important that his feet are not cold. Mother also sends her greetings and many kisses.
Since he travels so much, I'm gonna make him some socks, like I did last year. He travels. He needs comfort with those socks. My mama has to help me with the heels, but they are very warm socks. She's the deadliest hailest to humans. Anthrax. Yeah, I gotta charge his phone, so I'm gonna switch devices. Alright, Walt, do what you gotta do, brother. Do what you gotta do.
From your Bernile. On April 19th, 19...
I could have swore I just saw an account that said retro. Where did that go? I said, okay, I'm here. What the fuck was that? It disappeared though. Alright. There's Walt on his other account. You saw it too? Oh, I thought I was losing my mind there for a second, Topher. Like, what the fuck was that? I see something pop up. I go to read it, and it disappeared. I was like, what the fuck? I was about to try to welcome him in. Oh, I see it over here in this chat. Yeah, Retro BG-5, and they retracted their message. I wonder who that is. They're in here. They in here. What'd it do? Why'd you retract your message? I was trying to read that sheesh. Welcome through. How do I make a new account? You have to go up to your account on YouTube and just go through the settings. It says create new account.
In 1938, Fritz Wiedemann, Hitler's aide, described Hitler's indifference to the girl's Jewish ancestry as a purely human attitude. However, when Martin Bormann learned of the friendship, he prohibited both Bernile and her mother from entering the residence. Heinrich Hoffmann attempted to publish photographs of Hitler with
Retro BG, was you, Walt? Would you got another account? Damn, Walt, how many accounts you popping up with? Who you trying to? Damn, Walt, how many accounts you trying to pop off with? That was you? Who you trying to troll? Who you trolling with all these accounts?
Bernille, but Bormann strictly forbade it and informed Hitler of the decision. Although books containing these photographs sold successfully, Hoffmann was no longer allowed to photograph her. Bormann took it personally and ordered all books featuring Bernille to be destroyed. The ignorance of the masses regarding the true nature of the Jew, the lack of instinct, and the short...
I see that, Walt. I see that. You had me thinking I was losing my mind there for a second, Walt.
sightedness of our upper classes make the people an easy prey for the Jewish campaign of lies. While the upper classes, out of innate cowardice, reject a man attacked by Jews, the masses, out of stupidity or naivety, believe everything. The state authorities remain silent or, as often occurs, persecute the unjustly slandered, which, in the eyes of those officials, is maintaining state authority and safeguarding public order. Jewish dominance in the state seems so firm that one can now not only be called Jewish with pride, but also admits relentlessly their national and political intentions. The end will not only be the loss of freedom of peoples oppressed by the Jew, but also the end of that parasite. After the death of its victim, the vampire inevitably dies as well. Despite its commercial success, the book faced harsh criticism from various newspapers. It was accused of being filled with...
They called the Jews parasites. That's crazy. They called them parasites.
empty phrases, pathetic expressions, and trivialities with no real value. Journalist Stephen Grossman even expressed doubts about the author's mental health in an interview. Sven Felix Kellerhoff, author of Mein Kampf, the story of the book that shaped the 20th century, described it as a chaotic and repetitive work. The enormous number of digressions weakened its structure. In general, only two aspects stand out: Hitler's radical anti-Semitism with extermination fantasies and his belief that he was destined to secure the future of the German people by conquering living space in the East, a goal he hoped to achieve through an unrealistic agreement with Great Britain. Many historians agree that Hitler drew from numerous sources and that his ideas were not original, except for the way he combined everything he had read, particularly the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and the International Jew. They also accuse him of demonstrable errors in parts of his supposed autobiography, as he deliberately embellished fragments of his story to provoke certain effects on his audience. Reinhard Heydrich.
Damn, this is actually another little video about Germany's shadow for Führer. I don't know what that means. Is it the same channel? It is the same channel. I might. Let me see. What really started? That's a 51-minute. Biggest mistakes cost, and that's 43 minutes. That's not bad. Let me see though. If I find something else that's fairly decent in length, we'll play it too. No, yeah, I ain't seen none of them. Well, no, I've seen Messi and Noah. I mean, Messi and Nemo. Nemo popped in for like, oh, here you go, and then haven't seen him since. Noah came in a few minutes ago, just before you did, and was saying a couple things. But other than that, nah. I try to let them pick a video, and they don't even show up for the video they pick. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. It's disrespect. Shit's disrespect, man. I let them pick the video, and then they don't show up for the video that they pick. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. All right, let me try to find something else real quick. I'm gonna switch the camera to this. Let's see. Let me go back to this other channel.
Reinhard Heydrich was born. Accusations and reasons built in his mind, he managed to convince the world that it was necessary to
The brutal fate of Hitler's traitors during the Third Reich. The greatest German military leaders died.
Adolf Hitler's rise to power. The historical figure of Adolf Hitler was undoubtedly
You can't hear me, Walt? You can't hear? Tennessee won tonight? There you go, brother. High school team almost.
the most influential human being of the 20th century. This politician and painter was one of the few self-made statesmen who went from begging and starving in the suburbs of Vienna to becoming a prominent orator against injustices, mobilizing the most underprivileged masses, and eventually holding power in Germany as the leader of the Third Reich and the National Socialist Party. He took control of the German people with an iron hand, and at the same time provided them with one of the best social reforms of his time. Simultaneously, he carried out an unprecedented policy of aggression that resulted in the construction of the largest empire ever seen in terms of territorial expansion over Europe, Africa, and the Pacific of Asia. However, all of this came at the cost of triggering World War II, the devastation of all continents, the mass extermination of people, and the loss of over 80 million lives. This undoubtedly turned the Führer into a contradictory kind of myth, savior, tyrant, and modifier of the world's destinies like never before in history. Welcome to SMG Memories, the channel where we explore the most impactful events in world history. In this episode, we delve into one of the darkest and
Let me bring it back.
Adolf Hitler's rise to power. The historical figure of Adolf Hitler was undoubtedly the most influential human being of the 20th century.
It means what's good. It means what's good, Topher.
Adolf Hitler's rise to power. The historical figure of Adolf Hitler was undoubtedly the most influential human being of the 20th century. This politician and painter was one of the few self-made statesmen who went from begging and starving in the suburbs of Vienna to becoming a prominent orator against injustices, mobilizing the most underprivileged masses, and eventually holding power in Germany as the leader of the Third Reich and the National Socialist Party. He took control of the German people with an iron hand, and at the same time provided them with one of the best social reforms of his time. Simultaneously, he carried out an unprecedented policy of aggression that resulted in the construction of the largest empire ever seen in terms of territorial expansion over Europe, Africa, and the Pacific of Asia. However, all of this came at the cost of triggering World War II, the devastation of all continents, the mass extermination of people, and the loss of over 80 million lives. This undoubtedly turned the Führer into a contradictory kind of myth, savior, tyrant, and modifier of the world's destinies like never before in history. Welcome to SMG Memories, the channel where we explore the most impactful events in world history.
Memory.
In this episode, we delve into one of the darkest and most significant chapters of the 20th century, the rise to power of Adolf Hitler in Germany.
Rise to power of
To understand how Hitler came to power, we must comprehend his entire background and the socio-political environment in which he lived. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20th, 1889, at 249 Vorstadt Street in Braunau am Inn, a small and more rural area of Austria, which was then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This town was located between the Danube River and the Bohemian-Moravian border. He was the son of Alois Hitler and Clara Pölzl, a humble Austrian family of lower middle class. His father was a customs officer who had risen through the ranks on his own merit, while his mother was a peasant and housewife, widowed twice, who seemed to have found stability with her new husband. Regarding the couple's other 4 children, the 2 eldest were from Clara's first marriage, specifically Alois and Angela. From their union, 2 more children were born, Edmund and Paula. Adolf Hitler's early childhood was marked by the care and affection of his mother Clara, for whom he always felt great affection and love. Until the age of 3, Adi, as his mother called him, lived in Braunau before the family moved to Passau, and later to the village of Hafeld near Lambach when he turned 6. During this phase of his childhood, Adolf excelled in primary school, helped his parents by working in the fields, sang in the choir as an altar boy at the Benedictine convent, and also organized some mischief with his friends, such as simulating battles with stone throwing outside the village. He stood out in leading what he considered his youth militia. At the age of 10, young Adolf Hitler began to decline as a student when the family moved to Leonding in 1899,
There is
and
other
his
ways
brother
to do it though,
Edmund died
Topher,
of measles
but are you
in
doing it from a
1900.
phone?
This tragedy profoundly affected him, and Adolf changed from a cheerful
You're
and happy
good,
boy
Walt.
to
You're
a solitary,
good.
arrogant, and somber one. This took a toll on him after his admission to the Realschule in Linz. During the following 4 years, he barely managed to pass his exams and courses. Despite achieving good results in subjects like drawing and sports, he received very mediocre grades in other subjects and even failed in some, such as mathematics and shorthand. However, the greatest moral blow for Adolf occurred on January 3, 1903, with the sudden and unexpected death of his
So what they telling us is this man wasn't that damn smart. This man was not that damn smart.
father, Alois. This event led the boy to abandon his
He finished school by the skin of his teeth. I got you.
studies in 1904, opening up a dark and uncertain future for him. Adolf Hitler's life in Vienna during the years leading up to World War I was marked by a series of challenges and failures that eventually shaped his destiny and the course of world history. After finishing secondary school in 1905, Hitler moved to Vienna with the hope of studying art at the Academy of Fine Arts. However, his dreams of becoming a renowned artist were dashed when he was rejected by the Academy twice. The rejection was a severe blow to Hitler, who had felt a deep
Seems like Hitler gets a lot of rejections. This man must be used to rejection. Damn. He gets it everywhere he turns.
connection to the world of art and painting from a young age. For him, painting was not only a form of expression, but also a way to escape the difficulties of his daily life and find a sense of purpose. After being rejected by the Academy, Hitler fell into deep despondency. The death of his mother in 1907, who had been his primary emotional support, left him even more desolate. The loss of his mother and the subsequent divided inheritance put him in a precarious financial situation. With little money and no stable home, Hitler faced the harsh realities of life on the streets of Vienna. For several years, he lived in extreme poverty, staying in municipal shelters and sharing rooms with other homeless people. His situation worsened as he squandered his meager savings on visits to museums, libraries, and operas, leading to a spiral of debt
I mean,
and
so this
despair.
man was literally broke.
During this
dead
period
broke.
of vagrancy,
Dead broke, living in homeless shelters.
Hitler witnessed firsthand the social and economic inequalities of Viennese society. He observed how the working classes struggled to survive, while the elites enjoyed luxury and privilege. This experience fueled his discontent with the system and led him to develop a deep aversion to both capitalism and Marxism. As Hitler immersed himself in the political and social life of Vienna, he began to adopt nationalist and pan-Germanist ideas, becoming a fervent advocate of the superiority of the Aryan race and the need for a unified Germanic state. He blamed the Jews and ideologies contrary to traditional German values for society's ills. Despite his difficulties, Hitler did not lose hope. In 1913,
Right? Yeah, he definitely got rejected everywhere he went. The art academy, the military, school. Man barely passed in school, got rejected in the army, got rejected in the art academies. Everywhere he turned, Hitler got rejected.
determined to seek a better life, he left Vienna and moved to Germany, settling in Munich. Although his financial situation remained precarious, he found some success selling his paintings and postcards, which allowed him to support himself and continue his political struggle. Hitler's years in Vienna not only shaped his ideology and worldview, but also prepared him for his rise to power in Germany. His experience as an ordinary man who had faced adversity and failure resonated with millions of Germans who felt disillusioned with the status quo and sought a leader promising radical change. Thus, Adolf Hitler's life in Vienna was a period of personal and political transformation.
Well, with Hitler, they're definitely going to get a radical change. That's for sure.
that laid the groundwork for one of the darkest chapters in modern history. His experiences in the Austrian capital led him to adopt a radical ideology and become the leader of a movement that would trigger one of the most devastating tragedies of the 20th century. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in June 1919, imposed extremely harsh and humiliating conditions on Germany following its defeat in World War I. This treaty declared Germany solely responsible for the conflict, forcing it to pay exorbitant economic reparations that plunged the population into misery and on the brink of starvation. Additionally, much of Germany's industry was dismantled. Its colonies in Africa and Asia were confiscated, and its army was reduced to a symbolic force, leaving the nation vulnerable to other countries. The treaty also resulted in the loss of significant territories. Alsace and Lorraine were returned to France, Posen and parts of Pomerania were ceded to Poland, the Sudetenland became part of Czechoslovakia, Memel was handed over to Lithuania, and East Prussia was isolated by the Free State of Danzig. Furthermore, any unification of the Weimar Republic with Austria was prohibited. These conditions generated profound resentment and a sense of injustice throughout the German nation. The German people, devastated by these impositions, blamed the conservative and social democratic political class for signing the treaty, as well as the revolutionary left and Jewish intellectuals for supporting peace, even at a high cost to the country.
He blamed the left for signing the treaty. What up, Billy?
This sense of betrayal was encapsulated in terms like November criminals and the stab-in-the-back myth, which Adolf Hitler adopted and used to direct his hatred towards liberal Democrats, communists, and Jews. To Hitler, these groups were responsible for the personal misery he had experienced as a vagabond and the suffering faced by the German Reich after the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler's personal situation improved materially. He found work as a corporal in the German army, which provided him with a regular salary, free lodging, and meals at the Oberwiesenfeld barracks. However, on an emotional and spiritual level, Hitler felt deeply empty, humiliated, and betrayed by his rulers for what they had done to him and the treatment of his fellow soldiers who had made great sacrifices during the war. Seeking a new purpose, Hitler decided to try his luck in military intelligence, where he was recruited by Captain Karl Mayer. His task was to spy on the various political parties emerging in Munich and report on their revolutionary intentions. On September 12, 1919, he attended a meeting of the German Workers' Party, DAP, led by Anton Drexler. During this meeting, Hitler unexpectedly stood up to rebuke a speaker who proposed the separation of Bavaria and its union with Austria, which impressed the attendees and Drexler, who saw in Hitler a talent the party needed. A few days later, Hitler received an invitation to attend another DAP meeting. Initially hesitant, he finally decided to attend, and, after delivering another passionate speech that received great ovation, he formally joined the party. His oratory skills quickly attracted more followers, significantly increasing the DAP's membership. Hitler became a prominent figure in Munich thanks to his incendiary speeches filled with hatred and passion that resonated with the disillusioned and furious German public. His most notable speech during this stage took place on February 24, 1920, when he spoke before more than 2,000 people at the Hofbräuhaus Beer Hall, solidifying his decision to dedicate himself entirely to politics. This decision led him to leave the army on.
We just chilling, Billy. We watching the rise of Hitler and why Hitler hated Jews. You missed the why Hitler hated Jews part of it. That was the first 45 minutes.
April 1st, 1920, marking the beginning of his political career. In summary, the Treaty of Versailles not only devastated Germany economically and territorially, but also sowed the seeds of resentment that Hitler was able to exploit for his political rise. His ability to channel popular discontent and direct it against those he considered responsible for Germany's misfortune was crucial in his consolidation as the leader of the German Workers' Party, the precursor to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP. The German Workers' Party, DAP, changed its name in 1920 to the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, adopting the swastika as its symbol and the Roman salute with the right arm raised as its distinctive sign. This change marked the birth of National Socialism, a movement founded primarily by Adolf Hitler and, to a lesser extent, Anton Drexler. The NSDAP advocated for a revolutionary alternative for the era, aiming to break with the old order and reject both capitalism, which they blamed for economic hardship, and Marxism, which they believed had led to societal chaos and anarchy. Partially inspired by Benito Mussolini's fascism in Italy, National Socialism promoted the idea of ending class struggle between the bourgeoisie and workers in favor of the unity of the entire German people, regardless of their origin. This proposal, not present in any other party's program, generated great enthusiasm and was seen as a third alternative to the existing political options. Additionally, the NSDAP promised a wide range of social reforms, labor rights for workers, aid for small traders, and, most importantly, the restoration of national honor by abolishing the Treaty of Versailles and punishing the November criminals and Jews whom they accused of conspiring against Germany. They also advocated for territorial expansion to the east, known as Lebensraum, and the suppression of the liberal system in favor of a totalitarian state. From the start, Adolf Hitler had much broader goals, aiming to become the leader of the NSDAP by displacing Anton Drexler. To achieve this, he rented an apartment on Tierstrasse, dedicating his free time to distributing leaflets, seeking support and donations from the public, and recruiting old comrades. Meanwhile, the party's leadership spent their time in beer halls. Thanks to his tireless work, Hitler soon surrounded himself with loyal volunteers known as brown shirts, who wore paramilitary.
Surrounded himself with brown shirts. Yeah, I'm doing one more. It's the rise of Hitler. We're getting close to being halfway into it. And after this one, we will be ending the stream.
Military uniforms with red armbands bearing the swastika. These followers plastered Munich's streets with posters and organized weekly rallies that attracted thousands of people. Notable figures among his followers included Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, and Alfred Rosenberg. Hitler also took control of nationalist newspapers like Völkischer Beobachter and Der Stürmer. Hitler's efforts culminated in his election as the leader.
They all showing that Bellamy salute. I might do a UFC. I don't watch UFC. No, yeah. Like I said, same thing with the Bellamy salute. What those guys are doing right there, these people right here, that's called the Bellamy salute. Children in the US of A used to do that to pledge allegiance to the flag. You go look up the Bellamy salute, it's going to show you old black and white photos from the USA. And then it was stolen. He looks evil. He does look evil. Dr. Evil. Dr. Evil. Spell Bellamy salute? Hold up. Oh, I'll do it like this. Bellamy salute. There you go. Should be popping up under my other channel's name. My gaming channel. It's not popping up. It's crazy. Well, then I'll spell it over here then. There. Well, let me put it in on my other channel. Yeah, he does look sickly, but he looks evil. Calm down. Yeah. one day. Quit acting like a baby. Shit, my bad, guys, my bad. But yes, Topher.
Of the NSDAP on July 29, 1921, with 553 out of 554 votes from the Central Committee, making him the indispensable leader of the movement. Once in power, Hitler broke with the previous democratic culture and began the militarization of the party. He created the SA militia, led by Ernst Röhm and supported by Freikorps leader Gerhard Rossbach. The SA protected NSDAP rallies and harassed opposing political forces through street clashes, bar fights, and public event boycotts. Under Hitler's leadership, the NSDAP became more than just a political movement. Its members formed an almost spiritual brotherhood, participating in military parades, excursions, and ritual celebrations. The SA, growing to 15,000 members, organized itself as a private army with various units and a personal escort for Hitler. Influenced by the successes of Benito Mussolini in Italy and Mustafa Kemal,
Look like a mafia boss right there beside Hitler. Look like some mafia dudes. Those look like some mafia bosses right there next to Hitler. He had the mafia bosses up over here with him.
Ataturk in Turkey, Hitler staged shows of strength such as the first NSDAP Congress in 1922 and a march with 5,000 SA militiamen in Munich. Hitler's propaganda successes significantly increased the NSDAP's membership from 6,000 to 55,000. Despite the occupation of the Ruhr by French and Belgian troops in 1923, the NSDAP managed to grow in this region, even forming a modest armed guerrilla against the invaders. These actions consolidated the NSDAP as a dominant political force in Germany with growing influence and mobilization capacity. The Munich Putsch, also known as the Beer Hall Putsch, was a failed attempt by Adolf Hitler and his National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, to seize power in Germany in November 1923. This event occurred during a period of extreme crisis for Germany, facing the occupation of the Ruhr by French forces and rampant hyperinflation that devalued the currency to the point where enormous amounts of money were needed to buy basic goods. The Weimar Republic, the government of the time, was widely perceived as weak and incapable of managing the crisis, fostering an atmosphere of discontent and
No, yeah, I remember hearing about some shit that he had. Some shit was crazy. Yeah, I remember learning about that shit. You know about the giant facial scars his officers had? No, I can't say I know about that. I don't remember anything about that off the top of my head.
desperation. In this context, Adolf Hitler emerged as a figure promising drastic and decisive solutions. From the autumn of 1923, Hitler faced pressure from various sectors, both within and outside the NSDAP, to act against the government, even if it meant resorting to violence and breaking the law. Despite initial doubts and accusations of inaction from his closest collaborators, Hitler decided to act, counting on the support of the SA, stormtroopers of the NSDAP, the Freikorps, paramilitary groups formed by war veterans, and especially General Erich Ludendorff, a World War I hero who still held influence in the Reichswehr, the Republican Army. The coup began on November 8, 1923, at 8:45 p.m. Hitler and a group of armed SA men stormed a meeting of the Bavarian government at the Bürgerbräukeller Beer Hall in Munich. With a machine gun pointed at the attendees, Hitler announced the start of the National Revolution, detaining key figures of the Bavarian government, including Governor Gustav von Kahr, General Otto von Lossow, and Colonel Hans von Seisser. Meanwhile, the SA took strategic positions in the streets and set up barricades. However, the plan began
That was God, Stars. God did that shit.
to unravel when Ludendorff, believing that Kahr, Lossow, and Seisser would join their cause, convinced Hitler to release them. Contrary to their expectations, the three escaped and called on government forces via radio to quell the coup. This crucial misstep left the coup plotters without the necessary support from the Republican Army. On November 9th, in a final effort to save the coup, Hitler and Ludendorff led a march of thousands of NSDAP and SA members through Munich, hoping to mobilize the population and military forces to their side. Although they initially received some support from citizens and soldiers, their advance was halted on Residenzstrasse, where they encountered a government troop blockade. When Hitler and his followers advanced, the soldiers opened fire, resulting in the deaths of several demonstrators and a shoulder injury to Hitler. The coup attempt ended in total failure. 16 NSDAP and SA members were killed, along with 3 soldiers from the government forces. Hitler initially escaped, finding refuge in the house of his friend Ernst Hanfstaengl in the village of Uffing am Staffelsee, about 60 kilometers from Munich. However,
Hitler's ass went to hide. No, they haven't talked about Francisco yet. They may not talk about him in this video. This video is particularly about Hitler, so.
he was captured 2 days later on November 11th and imprisoned in Landsberg prison. Despite the failure of the Munich Putsch, this event marked a crucial turning point in Hitler's career. During his trial, he used the platform to spread his ideas and gain notoriety. His imprisonment in Landsberg provided him with time to reflect and write Mein Kampf, his political manifesto. Although the coup was a disaster in the short term, it laid the groundwork for the reorganization of the NSDAP and Hitler's eventual rise to power in 1933. On February 24, 1924, Adolf Hitler, along with Erich Ludendorff, Ernst Röhm, Rudolf Hess, and other leaders of the NSDAP, faced trial at the Blutenburg Military School. The trial was expected to discredit Hitler and his party, but it turned into an opportunity for Hitler to promote his ideology. The judges allowed him to speak.
This man was supposed to be going to court, and they thought he was going to be in trouble, and this man ends up professing his ideology and converting everybody. The fuck kind of court system is that?
Freely, which enabled him to turn the proceedings into a propaganda rally. Despite being charged with high treason, Hitler skillfully argued that his actions were intended to rectify the betrayal of 1918, earning him constant applause and ovations from the audience. The national and international media coverage amplified his figure, presenting him as a German hero. As a result, his sentence was lenient, 5 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 6 months for good behavior. Hitler was imprisoned at Landsberg prison in Bavaria, where his popularity continued to grow. He used his time in prison to convert inmates and officials into followers of National Socialism, organizing rallies and lectures within the penitentiary. Even in prison, Hitler maintained his influence, presiding over dinners under the swastika flag and setting up an office in his cell, which he shared with Rudolf Hess. It was in this cell that, with Hess's help, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, his autobiographical and political manifesto. Published later in Germany and Austria, the book...
I'm sure Shroom can understand them. I mean, Shroom, that's the language Shroom can speak, so. That's what it's called. I got you. I'll have to check it out.
Book, over 400 pages long, detailed his experiences in Vienna, the NSDAP ideology, the struggle for power, and his views on anti-Semitism and German territorial expansion. Lebensraum. Mein Kampf became a bestseller in Germany and was translated into numerous languages. Released on December 20, 1924 for good behavior, Hitler found the NSDAP in disarray. Internal conflicts among factions led by figures such as Erich Ludendorff and Gregor Strasser had weakened the party and reduced its membership, resulting in an electoral failure in 1925. Unable to participate in politics due to judicial restrictions, Hitler retreated to the Bavarian Alps, where he spent time painting watercolors and enjoying nature. By 1926, while the NSDAP remained in crisis, Germany was experiencing improvement under the leadership of Paul von Hindenburg. His conservative and militaristic administration had achieved the withdrawal of French troops from the Ruhr, re-established relations with Great Britain and France, improved the economy, and joined the League of Nations. It seemed that Hitler had stepped away from politics, But the situation changed when Gregor Strasser attempted to take control of the party. When the judicial ban preventing Hitler from participating in politics expired, he made a surprise appearance at the Bamberg Conference on February 14, 1926. There, he reaffirmed his leadership in front of party members and declared, "Either the enemy walks over our dead bodies or we will walk over theirs. If I die, bury my body with the swastika flag." This action revitalized his position within the NSDAP, consolidating his leadership and setting the stage for his rise to power in the following years. The conquest of power by Adolf Hitler within the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, was complete from 1926, as he effectively controlled everything, from appointments and electoral candidacies to the opening of party offices. He even forbade his followers from resigning without being dismissed first. With dictatorial rights at the head of his organization, the Führer adapted the revolutionary and violent strategy followed until the Munich Putsch of 1923 to fit the new climate of moderation prevailing in Germany, aiming to achieve power legally by winning elections. Starting in 1927, the NSDAP's stance became significantly more moderate. Knowing that he had little chance of electoral success at that time, Hitler gave only 56 speeches in 1 year, focusing instead on strengthening the movement's structure and its parallel organizations. He also aimed to surpass the propaganda of other parties through more effective press methods developed with his new associate, the publicist Joseph Goebbels. Soon, he regained the support of the SA.
That's to me weird. To me, that this part, the soldiers laying on the ground.
Inauguration of the red swastika. Lawyers equivalent parliament for the street crash worldwide. The already unemployed. Perfect opportunity Hitler had been waiting for, providing a justified pretext to blame the conservative politicians of the Weimar Republic, the traitors of the Treaty of Versailles, and of course the Jewish conspiracy both locally and internationally, for the collapse. Undoubtedly, the Great Depression catapulted Adolf Hitler and the NSDAP towards success, as demonstrated by the 1929 elections, which granted the National Socialists 6,400,000 votes and 107 seats, including the government.
I wanted to try to find the part where they had the picture of the troops and they were laying on the ground. That's not a photo you expect to see from military. With the military guys in the front laying on the ground. That's some type of cheerleader sports photo. Carnage, you late as hell. I ain't starting over. Man, we're an hour and 15 minutes in or so. What does it say? Actually, we're 2 hours and 25 minutes in because of all the pauses.
1932 presidential election, Adolf Hitler secured second place for the NSDAP with 11,339,446 votes, accounting for 30.1% of the votes, behind Marshal Paul von Hindenburg, who led the Weimar Coalition and received 18,651,497 votes, or 49.6%. The Communist Party of Germany, led by Ernst Thälmann, came in third with 13.2%, and the Steel Helmet Organization.
This is actually the second video. This is actually the second video of Hitler. I've already finished the first one of why he hated the Jews. This one's the rise of Hitler.
Organization, Stahlhelm, represented by Theodor Duesterberg, garnered 6.8%. Following the first round of the elections, Hitler embarked on an innovative campaign strategy, flying to 21 cities in a few days and holding 4 to 5 rallies daily. This unprecedented approach in politics garnered significant media attention, with headlines like "Hitler over Germany." In the second round, Hindenburg won again with 53% of the vote, but Hitler managed to close the gap, achieving 36.7%. Despite Hindenburg's presidential victory, the national elections on July 31, 1932, saw the NSDAP emerge as the most voted party in Germany. During this period, Hitler continued his intensive campaign, flying to 25 cities in 8 days, including Augsburg, Munich, Nuremberg, and Anhalt. The NSDAP received 13,745,000.
You should have watched the first half of the video. You should have been here for the first half of the video. Your son's birthday shopping could have waited.
680 votes, representing 37.27% of the electorate.
You think I'm going to give you the answers? No. You need to go back and learn. Go back and study your book. Watch your video. And then you'll know.
Which translated into 230 seats in the parliament, making it the largest party in the Reichstag. By late 1932, Germany's political situation once again became dead.
Yes, Topher, he was rejected a lot. Everywhere he looked, he got rejected. Fought his way in the back door, doing grunt work.
Deadlocked. President Paul von Hindenburg, who was determined to prevent Adolf Hitler from becoming chancellor at all costs, orchestrated a clumsy maneuver. He dismissed Franz von Papen and proposed the chancellorship to a candidate from the NSDAP other than Hitler, specifically offering it to the figure of the party's secretary.
Look, right here, you see military men laying down. This looks like something you'd see on some cheerleader picture, or maybe even a sports photo, but not a military photo. You got men laying down. How you take them men seriously? How you take them men seriously laying down? And do you see this man's, you can't see it, but his facial expression is like he's so over it. I don't know if it's that he's over having to lay his ass on this ground for this picture, or what that he's over, but his face is over it. Let me see if I can make it bigger. That man looks tired of this shit. He says, "Get my ass up off the fucking ground." You got your picture, Hitler? Get my ass up off the goddamn ground. I had to zoom it in. I don't know if I'm gonna do the Spanish word. How does it correlate with what's going on right now towards America? That's the thing. This has relevance in what's going on in current day America, because of everywhere you look back then in Germany, Jews were orchestrating or running things. He didn't like that. He changed it. Now, in America, everywhere you look, every major event in America has Israel tied to it. It's crazy. So everywhere you look, Israel is tied to something here in America. And the influence on American politics is absolutely atrocious. But, yeah. So we just learned a little bit about the man that tried to eradicate them.
General Gregor.
And a little bit of why that man tried to eradicate them. So we can get some insight, because history might be repeating itself, but not in Germany, over here in America.
Strasser. Astounded by the old marshal's move.
And I don't mean with the Holocaust, I just mean with Israel having a piece of everything over here.
Which aimed to undermine unity within the NSDAP, it had the opposite effect. The vast majority of National Socialists rallied unconditionally behind Hitler, forcing Gregor Strasser to resign as the party's Secretary General and to leave the political organization. Rudolf Hess assumed control of the party thereafter. As a result of this humiliating failure, Hindenburg hastily appointed General Kurt von Schleicher as Chancellor as an urgent and provisional measure while the country deteriorated. Unemployment rose to 8.75 million people, and street fights between the SA and the Red Front left hundreds dead and thousands injured, sometimes
There was also a left and a right back then, too, apparently.
necessitating the intervention of the Republican Army and the declaration of a state of emergency. By early 1933, nobody in Germany believed in the Weimar Republic anymore. Its leaders were incapable of forming a government, worsening the economy with their decisions, and chaos seemed uncontrollable. The resignation of Chancellor Kurt von Schleicher, along with a corruption scandal involving Oskar von Hindenburg, the son of President Paul von Hindenburg, further tarnished the system's already diminished prestige. Not even Franz von Papen accepted the chancellorship when Hindenburg offered it to him, resentful and angry due to his forced dismissal the previous year. With all existing candidates discarded, only one remained: Hitler. At 12 o'clock noon on January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler was sworn in as Chancellor of Germany, with the NSDAP ascending to power. The Interior Ministry and the Air Ministry were under Nazi control, while the rest of the government remained in the hands of the Weimar Coalition, led by President Paul von Hindenburg and Vice-Chancellor Franz von Papen. That same evening, from 7 p.m. until midnight on January 31st, a total of 25,000 members of the SS and the Steel Helmets paraded with torches and banners beneath the windows of the Chancellor's office, saluting Hitler. This display marked the beginning of a new era in German politics, signaling the rise of Nazi power and the erosion of democracy in the country. The appointment of Adolf Hitler as Chancellor heralded the immediate proclamation of the Third Reich, replacing the Weimar Republic. Elections were scheduled for 2 months later to ratify Hitler's election. Despite this declaration, the previous democratic system remained in place for a few weeks. However, unexpectedly, on February 27, 1933, the Reichstag building was set on fire by a Dutch communist named Marius van der Lubbe. The National Socialists secretly collaborated with him, leveraging the incident to stoke anti-Bolshevik fear across Germany, a sentiment that Hitler skillfully exploited through propaganda. Although the German Communist Party was never implicated, the event prompted President Paul von Hindenburg to suspend fundamental rights. He granted full freedom of action to Hermann Göring, the NSDAP Minister of the Interior, to take control of the gendarmerie and urban police, which would henceforth faithfully serve Hitler. The elections on March 5, 1933, resulted in a resounding victory for the NSDAP, with Hitler's party winning 17,277,328 votes and 288 seats. This was followed by the Social Democratic Party of Otto Wels, with 7,181,629 votes and 120 seats. The German Communist Party of Ernst Thälmann, with 4,848,505 votes and 81 seats. The Centre Party of Ludwig Kaas, with 4,905,905 votes and 74 seats. And the Steel Helmets of Alfred Hugenberg, with 3,136,760 votes and 52 seats. Shortly after this incredible result, the NSDAP and the Centre Party formed a coalition to obtain an absolute majority in Parliament. Through a vote of 441 deputies in favour and 94 against, Hitler was granted.
Come on now. We don't need none of that hatred. We don't need the hatred.
Granted full dictatorial powers, not only as Führer of the NSDAP but of all Germany. By mid-1933, Adolf...
I tell you what though, watching these black and white films, man, this shit can make you tired. It's like watching a bad version of Andy Griffith.
Hitler's power was so immense that with control over Parliament, ministries, the Republican Army, the Gendarmerie, the SA and the SS, he dissolved democracy through a series of legal and judicial decrees. All political parties and movements acquiesced without opposition. Hitler's policies during...
At least this time they don't got them laying on the ground. They kneeling on the ground. But what kind of fucking military man got shorts on? He got shorts on over here too. Watch What's with these fools wearing shorts in the military? How you wearing shorts in the military? What war are you fighting in shorts?
The first year of the Third Reich, including the annulment of democratic rights, did not face resistance as most of the population noted positive changes, particularly in the economy. The exaggerated construction of public works reduced unemployment to nearly 3 million by 1934, instilling a sense of national pride. Additionally, Germany's exit from the League of Nations and Disarmament Conference, approved by a plebiscite with 95% support, liberated the country from the moral humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles. However, two institutions, the SA and the German army, remained outside NSDAP control, posing a
What are they licking and putting in their mouth and then touching the ground? What the fuck are they doing?
95% support, liberated the country from the moral humiliation of the Treaty of Versailles. However, two institutions, the SA and the German army, remained outside NSDAP control, posing a real threat to Hitler. The Night of the Long Knives Purge addressed this issue, eliminating the SA leadership and weakening the conservative elements of the army. Hitler's consolidation of power culminated in the merger of the presidency with the chancellorship, confirmed through a plebiscite in which he received 84.6% of the votes. This move granted Hitler total power and the singular and unquestionable title of leader of the Third.
Damn. Well, that's the end of that film. But yeah, there's many more that we can do over here on this channel that we can react to. I'm not gonna do them all tonight. I did 2 of them tonight, so I'm not gonna keep doing it. We 2 hours and 40 minutes in. It's been fun. It's been great watching these black and white films. Man, this shit make you tired as hell. But hey, we'll be live tomorrow for football. Tap in with us on the other channel. Stay blessed. Stay great. As always, I'm Roy Ross. Peace out. Don't stay up too late.